Namaste, bonjour, hola, konnichiwa. Good morning. Hello, good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Ken at 10. How are you today? Hope you're doing well. We're back here in the office for a Monday morning. How are Mondays for you? I know for some people they're a bit of a depressing day. I always find them a great day because we've had the weekend, lots of people out viewings and things. And then today is when we rationalize all that, work out where we are, see if we can do anything, any deals to be had, try and do them, and then move on, get organized for the Monday morning meeting, which is all about what we can do this week to make sure we do the best for our clients. Had some lovely calls this week as well from people that are watching Ken at 10 and asking for advice. I always love that. Don't have to be local. We can sometimes, if you're out of the area, you just want to chat and see if there's anything that your agent's not doing or any way that we could help you, then do let us know. As you may know, we do sales, lettings, and auctions, so we can give you advice in all sorts of directions. And particularly the auction angle is something that a lot of other agents don't do. And it is a beautiful thing. If you're looking to sell your house and you just want something quick and simple, and the actual last penny is not the important thing to you, because at auctions, you don't tend to get the same, we can't guarantee the same money as in a private sale on the open market, then they can be a beautiful thing. And the reason for that is hammer down, bank, deposit down, exchanged. 28 days later, money in the bank. Yes, it comes at a cost, and the chances are you'll get slightly less than you would on the open market. But the flip side of that is the deal is literally done there and then on the day of the auction. And it's quite awe-inspiring when you're there and you see these things happening. We've got a couple coming up, and I'm excited about those, one very shortly. And they're both fantastic properties and great opportunities as well for people to get onto the ladder. Talking of which, there's been lots of talk about mortgages and affordability. Now the average home in the UK is 7 times the salary of any individual. That's a huge amount. When you think that mortgages are based usually on around 4.5 times salary, what that means is that people that are buying are either saving mega deposits or using BOMAD, the bank of mum and dad, or maybe auntie and uncle, or a rich friend, but certainly they're having to find money from other directions. That hasn't stopped them, though. In the last year, record number of first-time buyers have been buying. And one of the reasons for that comes down to confidence. And confidence comes from the thought of house prices rising, because also, frankly, natural greed kicks in. If we know that house prices are going to be more expensive tomorrow than they are today, then this makes us think we should get on this. We should get involved with this because we don't want to get left behind. FOMO, the fear of missing out. House prices in the end will always win, but in the medium term, there's always going to be fluctuations up and down. What's interesting at the moment is the Bank of England are considering changing their criterion. And this is not financial advice, by the way, but it is a fact, in the way that they assess candidates for mortgages. And it's something we at Ken 10 have been saying for a long time, certainly at James Alexander, that we have many, many tenants who are lovely and have been paying their rent on the dot every month without fail for years. And yet they can't get the mortgage that would be the equivalent payment because it doesn't quite look right on paper. And this is due to affordability rules, stress tests. And there's nothing wrong with stress testing. We should have them. And one of the reasons for the collapse back in 2007-9 was that those stress tests weren't good enough. And so what happened was, as usual with the banking industry, they came along and they tightened them too much. And now we're in a position where many people that should be able to buy can't. So there will be a look at those tests, and that'll be interesting to see where that leads. Now on to today's news. Detached homes in Wales are leading the property boom, apparently. And this is an article in the Telegraph and the Mail. The average price of a detached house in the UK has jumped by 16.6% or £60,000 since the start of the pandemic in March 2020, that is, according to the lender Halifax. Flats have increased by a more moderate 9.1%. And of course, this is UK wide. I should add, I wish they had increased by that much here in London. We're not quite that much of a spike. But the biggest spike, in fact, was in Wales, where terraced houses shot up by 25.1%. You heard that right. Terraced houses in Wales shot up by 25%. That is obviously from a very low base, but even so, that's a massive, massive rise, isn't it? At the other end of the scale, were flats in Northern Ireland, which actually fell by 2.4%. And in London, flats edged up by just 0.7%. And that was our experience, is that flats were neutral, while other properties did rise slightly around them. And rental prices, again, another article on rental prices in the Evening Standard and Metro, saying that UK rents are strongest on record. And Rightmove says the average London rent is now 2,000. We mentioned this last week, and that's a 9.9% rise for the rest of the UK and a 10.9% jump for London. It's interesting, isn't it? We said when the pandemic was ending that we'd see a reversal in trend, where everybody's been moving out of London, rental prices have been rising elsewhere, London's been falling or static. And now the trend is reversed. Why? Well, London is opening up. People are getting back to work. The other trend is people are moving to suburbs and slightly outside of London in the commuter areas like our own. And that's good to see, encouraging, and bodes well for the coming year. The reason they're doing that is because they found out that their bosses actually want them in the office more than they expected. A lot of people we found that were anticipating maybe 1 or 2 days in the office a week. The employers want 3 or 4. And so this is a bit of a sea change for people. It's made them change their strategy and think about perhaps moving a little bit closer than they would ideally like. So some of those idyllic locations are just a bit of a far stretch because of the commute. Equity release at a new high in 2021. Well, we mentioned this before as well. And buy-to-let landlords are paying the cost of smaller deposits. And that means that since September 2007, almost 1,000 more mortgages were granted since before the pandemic hit. But buy-to-let investors with small deposits who are viewed by lenders as risky must pay hundreds of pounds more in costs. Well, that's true of anyone, isn't it? Even first-time buyers, if you've only got 5% deposit, expect to pay more. That's the price you pay, I'm afraid. And I know there's no way out for some first-time buyers. I know that's frustrating. In terms of the market this year, well, I think it's going to be an interesting one. There are so many opposing factors. On the one hand, we've got everything from the Ukraine-Russia situation, rising interest rates, and a rising number of repossessions, which have been on a moratorium since the pandemic, through to the flip side, which is confidence is there, buyers are out in numbers. And at the moment, that confidence seems to be continuing and people are making buying decisions by the bucket load. What we can't get enough of at the moment is stock. There seems to be a big shortage in stock, but that doesn't mean that everything sells at any price. And this is a mistake that we're finding quite often, is that we're looking at properties where we're being called in as the second agent along and people are saying, why haven't I sold? Why am I not getting viewings? Sometimes it's the agent. Sometimes it's the presentation. Sometimes it's the fact that they're not exposed in the right places, or the agent they're using is perhaps one of the one-off payment agencies where you can't expect the same sort of incentive when you just pay an agent to list the property on Rightmove and Zoopla and sit back and wait for the phones to call, as you could from perhaps a more locally based agent who will still do, by the way, the Rightmove, Zoopla, On the Market, booming. All of those listings still come in, but also have that local presence and be able to give people those discussions, that local confidence. Bots can't do that. That conversation where you say, that property, what do you think of it? What rental yield would it achieve? What's the neighborhood like? Those are conversations you can't have with the big corporates that are doing these massive portals where you pay a one-off fee of a few £100, and you can't expect it for that sort of thing. And then that can impact finally on the price, because of course if you paid up front for a service and they've already got that money in the bank, I would suggest they're not as motivated as someone that doesn't get paid unless that sale goes through, and make sure that they drive the best price for you. And for us, we're always motivated by customer service. The number one thing, as I said before, is listening. And somebody said to me the other day, what do you mean? Of course we listen. Everybody listens, don't they? And I don't mean, the problem with most people when they listen to other people is that they're not really listening. They're not deeply listening. What they're doing is they're thinking of their response while listening, so that they can cut in immediately at the end of the sentence. I would suggest to you it'd be better not trying to think of a response until you've heard what people are saying. And then if there's a gap, that's okay. Don't feel like you've got to cut in immediately. Think about what's been said before you make your response. Stock answers are what people hate. What people hate is having said something and you not hearing what they've said and coming up with a stock answer. So do better, folks, because people are noticing. Apart from that, we've got a busy week on valuations this week. Loads of rental stock coming in as well, which is good because we need it. I've got one today that we're going to see in Dulwich, and that one already has multiple applicants looking for it. And it's always a frustration because, of course, only one can get it. And so, it's awkward. But always the case when we've got a booming market, and that's what it is right now in lettings, that there's going to be competition and lots of it. And then our job is to sort out the best fit really for the landlord and tenant in terms of personality, type, ability to pay. And that's what we do. So apart from that, we are looking at several valuations this week as well. And always love that at the beginning of the week when they're lining up nicely, because then we know where we are, easier to plan. We're just about to go into our Monday morning meeting, which we love. And there we discuss every single property we've got on the market, how we can better list it, how we can better help the client, what we can do to make sure they come on top of the pile in their price range. And indeed, whether that price range is right and appropriate for that property. What's the feedback like? How does it compare? What are people saying about it? What can we personally do to make sure that everybody in that range knows about it? What about the people that don't necessarily look on the portals, but are investor buyers? Would they be interested? What's the yield like? These are sorts of questions. And also, how can we do what we do better? We're great believers here at JA that, you can look at what you do and think, okay, that's it. And I like to think we never do that. I like to think that, what we do, and I always say to the guys in the office, what we do, the way we do it, we've always done it that way because it seems to be the best way. But if you've got a better idea, do let us know. And over the years, things change, things move on, especially the likes of video. These live videos now are fantastic for our business. Before, there was something that we decided to do. As many of you will know, we've been doing Ken at 10 now for a number of years, but not many people have. And people are starting to catch up. So we've got to work out how we can be better, how we can stay ahead of the pack and make sure that your home stands out amongst the crowd as spring comes in and there's more property available. That's what we do. So thanks very much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with another edition. This week's podcast is going to be about how you can be at the front of the pack as a buyer and make sure that you search and find and negotiate a home of your dreams. We'll give you some hints, tips and tricks this week on the podcast. Looking forward to doing that one with you. Until then, until tomorrow, in fact, at 10 o'clock, take care, stay safe, look after yourselves, and if you can, your family and friends. Ciao.